Okay, so let's get started. So a couple of announcements. The due date for the challenge submission is the 8th. So you've got around 3 weeks to, no, like 2 weeks, which is very little, to complete the submission. The submission, people have already started submitting for it. So wonderful silhouettes. Focus more on the character. So I'm loving stuff like this. There was one that was posted. Wow, these are wonderful. Careful with your head size. These are just amazing. These are exactly what I was imagining and envisioning when I was writing. These all look wonderful, honestly. And so yeah, focus on the characters' gestures. Careful with the head size here, a little bit too big. The other one was too small. Just looking wonderful. I love the experimentation with the god arm and the gestures and the silhouettes. This is the kind of working stuff I want to see. This is what you get paid for later, you guys. So focus on your concept art. Focus on your working and your blueprinting and all that madness behind, all the planning behind the curtain. Remember, you do have an option to put a background in, so make sure that you have your option laid out, your options laid out, and you have a lot of experimentation with your thumbnails for a full illustrated background. And I'm talking about like atmosphere and all of that and depth. These are looking wonderful. Careful not to allow the torso to deviate away from the spine. So a couple of times your torso isn't aligned with your spine and your hips. These are all looking wonderful. Some corrections after our last challenge. This is so wonderful. I'm so proud of what I'm seeing already. So if I continue to see this, it's not a promise, but I might extend it by 2 weeks, even in half a month, more than this. Just see where, if I were to increase the amount of time you have, if quality boosts up or you guys get more time to polish at least. I want all of these challenges to be stuff that you have in your portfolio when you're applying for freelance projects or applying to studios or just trying to put up your portfolio for jobs and all of that. I want to make sure that you guys take all this. So to correct after the challenge is really, really great, but I want to also get you guys enough time to really push these renders as far as possible. I feel like a lot of the return challengers, and I see a lot of people who have done previous challenges as well, are improving every single time. So make sure that you're trying to meet the deadline, but I see that you are meeting the deadline, but you could use a day or two more of just like a day's worth of hours more of rendering left, and I'll probably extend it. But that's not a promise. A lot of people are still going to meet the day the due date, and that's not fair to them that I extend it because others were late. This extension would be because others have finished and submitted and they feel like they need a little bit more time to refine. It's not an extension for those who have started late. If you haven't started blueprinting now, you're probably not going to make it. So please start blueprinting now. Blueprinting will probably take you a week, and then a week of rendering, and then a week of critiques until you post it. So just don't wait too long. If you don't know what the challenge is, go to the all posts. If you don't want to join the community, go to istebrak.com and click on the Google Plus icon. And then join, read the rules. Make sure you read the rules. It's almost like, it's almost 8,000 members, so probably one of the biggest groups on Google Plus community. I see our posts on the front page of Google Plus art, whatever, on all the time. So keeping that in mind, following the rules is really important. So please read them. We've recently updated them. Tommy recently updated them. So please go through them. And for the challenge itself, to read it, it's just pinned at the top of the wall. Just go to all posts and read through it. Download the resource pack from my community tab on my website. And if you like all of these, if you want to keep these coming, by the way, patrons do join this challenge, but in their own private server, with their own dedicated critique hour on Saturday, the 27th. It's really going to be a critique hour for the January challenge, but for the critique hour for this challenge, they get that in February. But if you do want to join in and see an alternative for private tutoring or a little bit more focused, Patreon offers an apprentice category tier that you can join and become like a sort of more direct member of the learning community. with more exposure and more time to ask questions, and written portfolio reviews, and of course our conversations on our voice chat and at the private live stream. And if you just want to support as a watcher and be a member, our goal is 1,000 patrons. So I really want to see 1,000 patrons, even if it's just a watcher. I think we can do that together, but we'll see if it's definitely available for those who want to. So let's get started. Really big critique hour today, and it's about gestures and figures. So that's always a complicated subject because there's just so many components are involved in pulling off a believable gesture, that because there's so many components, the biggest and most problematic, most widespread issue when students try to complete a painting, especially if they skip gesture, silhouettes and experimentation, especially if they skip the stage altogether, is stiffness. They get this terrible stiffness. There's disproportionate sizes, inconsistent spine and symmetry, really stiff, and kind of like a low read on the silhouette. So what are the ways to test how good you did? So it's a really stupid way to say it, but really it's just how good did you did. And right over here, what I do is I just get a big white pencil or pen or paint or whatever, and I just get the general gist of the silhouette. A lot of professionals do this, and when I say professionals, I mean like lead artists in Riot. All right, so what am I doing here? Am I going to include the hair? No, I'm not including the hair. Let's just forget that. And this is a technique that I think his name is Jason Chan. He does this as well. He made a video a long time ago when I was like 18. I forget how old I was. All right. So right over here, what's happening is you are actually getting a really stiff read just in your silhouettes. And when I say silhouettes, I mean this. If you don't get a good read here and you get like this super stiffness here, you're not going to get a good read in your illustration just because you dressed it up with details and color and a silhouette and some glowing subsurface scattering around the hair and a butterfly. None of that is going to save the fact that or hide or distract from the fact that the image essentially looks really stiff. So what are some of the things that I would correct? I would allow the orbit, kind of the orbit, yeah, of the arm, the far arm, to be a little bit wider, so that there is this T-like shape here. I'm also going to complete the shape of the torso to match the weight and body type of the arm. So the arm is probably, this arm is probably the best thing about this gesture, which is really not saying a lot. It's not like it saves the image. The shoulders are very asymmetrical. It feels like whenever you guys lean ahead on a shoulder, suddenly the shoulder shrinks in size. So I'm going to have to adjust that later. The position of the head is completely wrong. It should be somewhere here. And the neck doesn't shrink just because we tilted our head down. The neck still has its position. And especially if the camera is low. When the camera is low, yeah, the torso is in front of the neck. But when the camera is high, the torso can be above the neckline. And then you have a character that his neck is no longer visible because, well, we're looking down at him. But this is a pretty leveled image, and you kind of shrunk the head. And when I say orbit, I'm just going to completely delete this. When I say orbit, I mean how far the arm is traveling. So essentially what you're doing is something like this. She's like, ooh la la, what a beautiful butterfly. And she's just holding the butterfly, and the butterfly is flying. And she's just like, oh la la, what a beautiful butterfly. And then she's just tilting her head. But that doesn't mean, for some reason, her head went and did something like that. All right, this is what you guys do. You don't interpret the fact that you need enough space for the neck. Also, maybe this neck is a little bit too long. It doesn't really matter. It's just the sketch part of this. I'll just shrink it a little. But also, you started sketching all of this without telling us what exactly she's doing with her spine. So what do you draw first? Well, what is your gesture? What is the story? What's happening? How are you characterizing? She seems to be a girly, beautiful centaur princess flowing around in the woods. So obviously we're going to need a very over feminized Aphrodite type silhouette for her body, small upper body, large lower body. And then what we do is we decide on what the spine is doing. Without the head, without the arms, without the legs, what is the spine doing? Without the torso. I mean, without the hips or the torso. The torso comes next directly and the hips. But just delay all of that. What is the spine doing? Once you identify where the spine is, then you bring in the torso. And with that, we identify what the perspective is. Sorry, this is really messed up. And then after that, what are the hips doing? So what I'm assigning right now are landmarks. These are landmark features that I call them landmarks because they're the biggest components in the body. And they always seem to be in a fat, bone, fat pattern. So I try to find these guys before I've even found the head. A lot of you work head down, work eye down, which is so terrible because it leads to stiffness just like this. So her neck is, it's as if she's a hunchback. Her neck is completely collapsed, as if melted together with her shoulder line. Her torso and stomach is way lagged. It's in the shape of a lean stomach, but it looks massive in the navigator. So what's next after this? Then I get the shape of the head. But I don't just draw any head. I draw a head with a shape that anticipates the fact that the head might be a 3/4 view, it might be a 3-dimensional shape, just maybe, and it's a head shape that addresses the perspective and the direction of that, that face is facing. So it's not just the sphere for the cranium, it's the cube structure for the rest of the head and the jawline. When I apply this head size, I usually put it in a new layer so that I could readjust it and make sure that the body seems like it's 8 heads long. If it's a female, the head might be slightly larger than the upper body. If it's a male, slightly smaller. This is because males are just bigger and their heads seem small compared to their upper body. So there's a lot of characterization in just the head size alone. And it sets the stage for comparably, as if it's the gauge and the anchor for the measurement, what a head size would be for a child, which is much bigger, or maybe the same size but a smaller body, which makes it look like a like a child. And then for a male, same head size, maybe exactly the same but the larger upper body to read as a male, kind of like that Kylo Ren. I haven't been able to get over that Kylo Ren meme. It's fucking hilarious, man. So what I want to say basically is that it looks like you started off with the face, and then you just continued on downward. And that's why you kind of lost track of what characterization wasn't even in your vocabulary then. And you lost track of exactly what you were doing with the character. The background, though you are trying to treat it as sunlight, it looks like mustard gas. It looks like yellow gas. It doesn't look like it looks like fog. And the reason why is because if we're talking sunshine, if we're talking sunshine over here, it really needs to be brighter. You're using a gray tone over here compared to what you need really. And you've kind of washed this entire area with the same gray tone. I'm reading fog because you did that. So either fill it up with foliage and, grow a pair and just try to paint the landscape in the background. Trees are not going to bite you. I promise. Painting a brush is not difficult. Painting a little bit of foliage and leaves is not difficult, just as long as you control the edge for each leaf and the excessive amount of detail. A tree will not bite. Write that back to me. I'm joking, don't write it. But the only amount of white you need is directly, where the sun glare is coming from. If you want it to be all white, you can do that. If it's a specifically divine scene, especially with the framing you're doing. If it's just a little bar of light coming in from the outside, a sort of God ray or something like that, then you have to dim around. I might try something like that with my paint over. But let's get started. It looks very, very muddy, very, very weak values. You're going for silhouette, but you don't have enough light to reinforce that silhouette. And again, it just reads like foggy mustard gas. So what do? We start with liquefy. I'm going to start with the spine. And what are the biggest signifiers for the spine, like the biggest giveaway for where your spine is your belly button line. So there's a line right along here. Also, your chest line. So there's symmetry lines all over your body that give away where the spine would be. And I'm trying to find it right now. Your torso and your belly area Don't write it back. It was so laggy. It looked like she was pregnant, but not really. And again, this is what happens when we don't zoom out. So I'm going to start with the stomach because that's the biggest giveaway here. Not necessarily always start drawing the stomach. No, I'm only drawing the stomach because it's a derivative of the spine, and that is the main gesture. That's the trunk of the body. So what comes first? What can you live without? Can you live without an arm? Yes. Can you live without a torso? No. So that's why we draw the torso first. It's the main trunk. That's where all the functions are. That's where all your mechanics are nice and compact and protected by your ribs. And then you can live. Unless someone aims a 50 caliber rifle at you. So right over here. Then I'm going to find the hip, little indentation of the hip. You got a lot of bleed. Is she translucent? This isn't the amount of subsurface scattering on the skin. You're treating the body as if it is as translucent as the hair, which doesn't work. Please stick to English. Yes, please speak in English. Thank you. Next up is the size of the hand. The hand needs to be a representation of the age where you currently are. If it's any smaller than your head size, it will read as if you are deformed or your hand delayed in growth. So I'm going to leave her head size the same. I'm going to have to probably use transform tool to correct the head tilt. Then I'm going to show you guys a little, see where it was before. It's just not how it works. You're dealing with you're dealing with female anatomy, human attached to a doe, centaur type creature. And if you're going to do that, the upper body, that is, the part that's human, just leave it human. Don't try to mold it into, you are not a I don't know what kind of scientist. You're not a geneticist. You're not in charge of deciding how genetics mix and sync in order to create a functional creature. You don't need to worry about that. And don't try to align the lower body, the stomach area, with the upper body of the deer or the doe. It's not going to work. Trust me, it's just going to bite you in the butt. If you're going to have half that's human, go for full human. Don't try to meet it halfway. It looks uncanny, and you're not equipped with the knowledge to pull this off. The next thing I'm going to do is just chop her head off. See ya. And then I'm going to actually before and after this, and you can see yourself how stiff the head was. So I'm going to let you guys see this, and this is one of those tricks that I showed you guys last time. I'm going to work without the head for a little while, and I'm going to enable the head again. And you will see for yourselves, and this is an excellent trick for self-critique, you will see for yourselves how problematic it was. I'm going to get the silhouette back for the neck and the shoulders. It's okay if I did it too much. The rest of the paintings are just exactly like this today. So that's what I'm covering today, but they're not quite as extensive as this piece. I'm also going to correct this subsurface scattering problem you have here. That's excessive for skin. And I'm just going to lighten this. Flip the image. Find the hip. And then connect it back down to the deer. So this is actually one of the themes I cover with my sketches. I like to combine different anatomies, especially doe and female, or doe and like lioness and female or human, Okay. For the stomach, you included too much contrast for just the belly button, and that kind of looked uncanny. So what I'm going to do, in fact, I'm just going to delete the way you did it. It's as if the body's glowing from the inside out. She's not that translucent. She's not a jade sculpture, which is okay when they're glowing inside out. So we're a little bit more opaque than that. Dense, muscular, and skeletal structure. Okay, and then I'm going to just think about the bounce light in the hollow or grotto or whatever it is. And that will be kind of what reveals the belly button to us from top down. Yeah, well, you know what I wish for sometimes? I wish like all of us lived near each other and we could all go to the gym together. I mean, I don't talk much at the gym, but it'd be really cool. I'd probably start critiquing your form though. But yeah, I definitely need like a heavy support group. I need a support group to get me through this madness. But I hope in 3 months I'm strong enough, and you know, I've been looking forward to a UK trip actually. My dream has always been to see Stonehenge ever since I was a kid. I don't really talk about it much on streams, but it's been my dream ever since I discovered Tolkien, discovered the mysticism of druids, and it's always been my obsession. So I've always wanted to go, but ever since the stupid news and me not being able to walk properly and limping and whatever, I've been very worried about even if it's even possible for me. So hopefully in like the next 3 months I can report back with good news about my development of my back, and again, I'm just bouncing light from the top, and then I can actually go. And when I go, I wanted to vlog it and send you guys some pictures, maybe on YouTube, maybe somewhere else. But where we're getting all this light is from above. I don't know what they're treating Stonehenge like nowadays. I don't know if you're even allowed to go in. Heard some weird rumors that you're not allowed to go in, but why would they close that entire tourist attraction off? I mean, that's like one of the main reasons people go. So I don't think that's true. Finishing off the belly. I don't know, I think I painted quite a chubby belly, but okay, and then I'm going to enable the head again, and then you guys will be able to see what happened. She's kind of just stretched out. Filter, liquefy. Oops. Cancel. Filter, liquefy. I'm not looking at the comments yet, so if you have a comment about, you know, or answers about Stonehenge, then you can save them for when I'm looking over. And I will in a second to see your reaction. So I want you guys to critique this. Once I enable the head again, I want you to tell me, because right now in your brain is finishing the rest off. You think your brain is letting you see a headless creature in front of you? You'd freak out if your brain allowed you to process what this means. Right now your brain is finishing this picture. Do you guys know this? Do you guys know that you're seeing the rest of the head right now projected in your minds? When I enable this new image, this new, or the old, actually the head, you'll compare it to what's in your mind and you'll see how off it was. So I'm going to go here, finish off this Terminator line, finish off some of this bounce light on the breast, finish some over here, and do some smudging. Always smudge just a little bit extra for female bodies. Can anyone answer why that is? Can anyone answer why we need to smudge a little bit more for female bodies? I live right by Stonehenge. You can go in, but you have to pay now. You can go inside Stonehenge? You can go in with a supervisor? That's so cool. I didn't know. Istebrak, don't give up on your dreams, especially traveling. It's good for your body and your... Yeah, I know. I really want to travel. Insta vlogs. I might show my face for those days. I think I'm done hiding. So when I do go and I take the videos and I kind of just film my face while I'm there and stuff. And I'll do like that stupid cheesy I'm no longer colorblind videos where I'm fake crying and breathing really heavily. The first time I see Stonehenge. I'll probably do that just to make you guys cringe. As if I don't make you guys cringe enough. Female bodies store more fat under the skin than male. Exactly. So we need more gradients. And that's pretty much it. So if you're going in there with a painterly look, try to have a little less painterly in general for the character's body compared to the trees on the outside. So I'm throwing a couple more little radial shades that I'm just smudging away. I could do this with soft brush, but I'm just having a little bit more control with my number 4 brush. And we need one more little edge over here of one breast in front of the other. So why am I focusing on the breasts and the belly? Because those are the next focal points when the head is missing. That's it. Titties. That's it. It's all about the titties. I'm sorry, but if you've ever looked at any kind of painterly masterpiece or, you know, really, it's just how it is. This is how humans are. So to identify where the focal point is makes it a lot easier instead of you, you know, removing the head from visibility and the next focal point is not going to be a button just hanging around. It's not going to be one random stitch on the jacket. It's going to be the next most intriguing anatomical component, which are the titties, okay? All right, so that edge is nice and beautiful. I'm going to get so many accusations of being a lesbian just because I zoomed in, right? But I'm just taking care of this. I'm going to zoom out. And you guys can see how prevalent it is now that we have this the focal point is so available. And look at how little detail we have around the belly button because we don't need it. We've already established that the breasts take over as the next available focal point. Okay, do you guys see this issue? What is the biggest critique you have for this? So this is where I would put it in the new position. You tilted the head and the neck. The neck doesn't, the neck can tilt forward, but the head should be taking care of the rest. So you kind of molded the body with the head. And it just seems so off. I feel like the head should be a little bit more erect and just a little bit more tilted. But I swear to God, if anyone laughs at that word. Evu is one handsome lesbo. Focus. I'm so sorry, mods. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it could be the underarm hair. I would really get rid of it. I would really get rid of it. You want to reflect beauty standards of the now. And right now, hair is bad. Less hair, the better. That's just really the movement now. So in my characters, I never really leave the armpit hair there. I think sooner or later we're all going to just stop having hair in that area altogether. It's just, why is it there? Alright, so I'm just going to find a dark value here to replace it with. Just something like that, and that's as dark as I'd go. But compare those two. Okay, so if you had to tilt, align the head. The neck is fine. Just align that. You can tilt the head, though, if you feel like you've got to. That's okay. She can tilt her head. But leave the neck alone because the neck doesn't really do that. When I'm looking at something and it's intriguing, I'm not focusing on, you know, the tilting of my head. The tilting of my neck. I'm not trying to see past something and cranking my neck just to be able to see it. The bird or animal is right there. All she has to do is tilt her head as if to say, "Aw, it's cute." But the tilting could have just been taking care of that. And so what you caused was very, very stiff gesture. And I'll show you the before and after in a second. Alright, so what's everybody else saying? The head is smooshed to the side. Yeah, it's supposed to be a shadow, I know, but it's reading as hair. I don't think it was meant to be hair, yeah, but it was reading as hair because it was just so dark. It was as dark as a dark spot. So that's why you gotta get rid of it. Okay, and then I'm just going to adjust this. And there's always the dreaded flipping of the canvas so we can figure out what's happening with the other shoulder. So, you have so much patching up to do. Okay, so pretty sparkly ears and really, really crazy values and just all that fun stuff isn't going to save your painting from looking off. It's definitely going to show. You're gonna see all of that madness seep through. And it's gonna haunt you till you fix it. So why would you even start painting if you haven't addressed all of that yet? Look at that other shoulder, completely shaved off. And if she's a girly, you know, she's kind of flirting with the bird, then you might want to raise the shoulder up. And it's that other shoulder, it's that other arm that just feels so off. I feel like we should be trying something a little bit more like this for the other arm. So do you see what I did? I just added more. All those pretty leaves, all of the pin-up stuff isn't going to save the painting. It's stuff that, the preliminary stuff that we do, and that's what this challenge right now that's going on is teaching you to do. Just plan and never stop planning, and don't stop until you know 100% this is exactly what you want the image to look like. That may seem like the opposite of what you want to do because you're all professionals and you want to start painting right away. But this whole channel has been one big newsflash to you, no, you're not as professional as you think. You actually need to plan more. In fact, professionals plan more than you do, and they're professionals and they're worried about what their work is doing to the image, you know, whether or not it's going to read. So you have no excuse not to sit there and blueprint a bunch of different types of gestures that you think might work with this painting. Okay, so if they're doing it, what's your excuse? And all of you just want to jump right in and just start drawing because that's the fun stuff. But I don't know why you don't apply like everything to this. Why do you think you can have fun if you haven't done the work yet? So it's like, you know, spending all day messing around and playing on your Switch and not doing the dishes that have been rotting in the sink for 3 days. You know, one has to happen before the other. You can't have fun, and these are principles of the world. I mean, it's not just art. You can't have fun until you did some work. So it shouldn't be too hard to accept that you need to start blueprinting. You need to start planning the gesture, the lighting, everything. Okay, so go wash those dishes. I've said this before. Okay, the shoulder here needs a little bit more space. I feel like now we have more breathing room with the other arm kind of there. It's not just so tucked in. Whenever I see an arm tucked in like this, I know the artist had trouble drawing it. Because it's the same thing. When you're shy and you're on stage, you tuck all your arms in. You're kind of just looking down. And that's what happens when an artist does the exact same thing, but, you know, with their art, their characters kind of representing their nervousness. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to just do my best to desaturate. Get rid of that mucky yellow. Get some white in, and then raise the white up. So you'll actually complete the craziness of this painting, which is a very, very strong silhouette. And you can't have a strong silhouette without having white. White is required. I'm also going to shift things over just away from that orange, something a little bit more cool, maybe desaturated. I'm not sure if this is what I want to do. Just darkening just a little bit for a little bit more maturity. Another thing you can do is, again, that same bounce light that's allowing us to see the belly is some of that bounce, because look at how strong the source light is. It's almost white. And that means that some will bounce around from the grass to the roof to down to the character. So we might have some chance to radially build the arm cylinder just a little bit. I don't know, I feel like I'm doing okay. Have I been very slurry? I mean, I'm not taking any medicine anymore, but have I been very foggy? Very, what's the word? Foggy brained? Foggy brain fog? I hope not. Please comment below, like and subscribe. Alright, so I'm just correcting some more. I I really do think the face was the first thing you started, because when we zoom in, it's got so much detail. Usually if you started the face with the body and you rendered everything together, the face is less detailed or as detailed as the body. So, not at all? Okay, good. I'm not in any pains. That's good. I hope it stays. Like I said, it disappears when I start drawing, but right before class, you know, when I'm getting the stream ready, it was just like, yo, oh my God, I can't do this. But then I do it. Okay, so I think that's as much as really I can do. There's a lot more to fix and a lot more of the neck to consider, a lot more light around here and bounce light around there, and it's just so much more work for me to cover. I feel like the head size could be corrected because, again, let's just hide the head for like 30 seconds and I'm gonna just sketch what I think the head size should be, and if it's the same as before, then, you know, this can happen. I feel like the head size should actually be somewhere here. Yeah, somewhere there. Maybe her head is tilted and then her neck is just like, ooh la la, what a beautiful bird. Like that. Because I'm looking at her breasts, and usually a breast size is usually very similar to the head size for some women, and hers seem to be. She's not going to go to the plastic surgeon anytime soon, if you know what I'm saying. So maybe it's the same size. I'm going to have to flip the canvas, increase the width. Yeah, this seems nice, right around there. And then I would give the ears something like this, but only because I've been favoring that larger kind of scope and the triangle that completes the triangle of the eyes, which is very beautiful. I feel like something like this is a little bit more appropriate, but again, this is what I think the head should be, head size wise and beauty wise. Let's see where it was before. So, yeah, very tiny. Feels like it should be a little bit bigger, considering just the shoulders and the breasts. Can't really tell if mine was too big. I think mine was too high, and I feel like the torso is still very displaced, but breasts can be very heavy and lean forward. Mine can be too high, but I think in general, the face, at least, if not the head, the face of your character is too small. So that'll be the last thing we correct, and then you can take a look at the before and after. So. Yeah, definitely needs to be bigger. Absolutely. Makes a lot more sense that it's bigger, but I feel like the face should still take up more space on the head. But, you know, I don't want to just be here for hours trying to figure it out. Yeah. I would make it even bigger. I'm just looking at the general body type over here. Nope, can't do that. Shrink it just a little. Flip again. Oops. Flip again. Neck is nice and straight. I think that is pretty close to what I designed. Mine is a bit bigger. Let's take a look at the before and after. Okay, so merge down. Let's see where it was before. And before, after. It's hard to tell, but before, you gotta zoom in. After. So do you see the problem with the breasts and the stomach, especially, and how the stomach, as a signature for the spine's role, it was completely off. It was like a deformity, and now she has a waistline. The belly isn't this super black hole that seems hairy. It's just out of the way and under rendered so we can focus on her beauty. Maybe they do have bellies, but they don't have belly buttons because they don't really need umbilical cords. I don't even know how centaurs work. There are memes attempting to delve into the science. There are people who are dedicating a lot of research to how centaurs work. Yeah, the white light helped because it looked like fog or some sort of Star Wars desert planet filter, you know? And the white light really just pushes it forward. The detail on the breasts, they're just out there. They're big solar panels catching light. You know how boys say no homo? No lesbo. Okay, we need to start saying that. I'm so sorry for my excessive attention paid to the breasts. So if you're doing a pinup, it's all about the titties, okay? So just look up some references if your parents let you. Honestly, if you're too young and still need your parents' permission, you shouldn't be trying pinups. Some hair might be falling down this way. I just feel like that cut is just so off, but it's your choice. I would get rid of it. No, it's and the neck actually needs, that's not gonna help. The neck still needs a lot of. One thing I'm gonna do, because I am having a lot of trouble, and this is why exactly I set this program up, is to just test this on Portrait Studio. So let's do this one more test and create this exact gesture, but on Portrait Studio's figure. So as you know, Portrait Studio has a posable figure. To download your copy, you just got to go to my store. All right, let's get the señorita over here. And I'm going to move this over so I can take a look at what her gesture is doing so you guys can actually see zoomed up. Okay, so her head, so we're seeing, where's the camera? The camera is this way. And we are seeing her tilt her head. No, the camera's more this way. So we're seeing her tilt her head this way. And she's like, oh. And then her arm, this arm is more this way and this way. She's got this dude. Where are you? Okay. And then she's got this whole oh my boob kind of gesture. Sorry about the hum. She's like, aww. Well, yeah, it goes in. I need to correct the fingers to make them lean against the breasts. I might actually be able to. No, I can't. I would have had to do that earlier. So the breasts are doing this. This is the camera angle. I have to keep going back to it. And then she's got an arm that is doing a little bit of this. All right, let's take a look. Nope, you gotta rotate to get it right. And then her wrist is doing a little bit of that. Very cheesy pose, by the way, now that I look at it this way. Actually, her wrist is not doing that. It's a little bit more like resting the dude. So her torso is doing a little bit of this, but along the hips, she has a little bit more of that. So she's got this. Let me try to correct the light to be a bit more. No. There we go. So the light, you can adjust the light to make it so that you can get the light you need, as it would be a, obviously it would be a, who's it? I forgot. But you see how the neck is more visible with a low camera. But over here, we've got, where are you? No, the other dude. A little bit more of a tilt here. And Okay, so I'm going to actually make the lighting that you had. So yeah, we do have a little bit more orbit for the shoulders. So we do have a little bit of that right here. And then, yeah, so that's it. So I'm going to just set up the lighting to be similar to what we had, which is a silhouette, which means it was more like that. And then we can get our point light. Indicator is on. No, you. Talking about you. Where are you? I have to rotate it. Okay. I don't know why you're all the way over there, honestly. I don't know who put you there. But come over here, you little shit. Okay, so this would be that top-down bounce light coming in, revealing some of her breasts and some of her face. Oh, and your universal is actually shining in this way. Alright, so I'm just going to turn off all the indicators. Excuse me. Oops, wrong one. And it kind of feels like it's right, so let me take that screenshot. Kind of feels like it's doing what it's supposed to be. I feel like, yeah, the head would have been much better if it had been tilted back and we'd have seen some of her face. And in my paint over, I missed this. So this could have been there. Just a little bit of this. But I still see how the shoulders still meet up. So this is a very, very detailed mannequin. I might, if it seems like a good idea, include a more basic mannequin in the future. But I feel like you guys have enough basic referencing in Portrait Studio. Sorry about this extended little demonstration, but I feel like we deserved it. We needed it because I really was having trouble figuring out head size and whatnot. But I'll show you in a second. If you increase the head size even slightly in Portrait Studio, so indicators on, and I'm talking about press this, and then, by the way, there's a manual for those who don't know how to use it. But you can increase head size just because this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is probably where it was, but you can increase it up to here and get away with it. You could decrease it down to here and get away with it. Do you see how she looks more athletic with the small head and more feminine with the, okay, that's ridiculous, with the larger head? Do you see that? So you have a lot of wiggle room for head size, and I'm actually covering this soon. Yeah, we assigned a character design layout, so it's basically you're given a bunch of character designs for well, beautiful Terminators just around here for the Patreon challenge this month. And characterization through head size is really a big deal. It's kind of like a measurement tool that you use against everything, because we use the head size for up and down. So you can still get 8 heads from this, maybe 8.5 if you shrink it, maybe 8 solid if you increase it, maybe a little less than 8, maybe 7.5, but as long as it stays around 8 if you round it up or down. But I feel like this would have been much better, because if we tilted the head as if she's saying on, she's kind of tilting her head, that would have been so much more beautiful. She really looks like she's having a moment with the bird. If we tilt the head, if we tilt the wrist just a little bit, we show that she's a little bit more human with her placement of her wrist, so nothing too poised or posing, so a little bit more of a lack here in stiffness, just to show that the arm might be a little bit too heavy. The fingers are posable, but we just have to correct the alignment along the fingers. All right, and if she is a doe, I would recommend doing something where you really push past and then try to get as if this lower part here is going to connect to the doe, so we're kind of forcing the angle in her body. Just because she's a doe, she has more control over her spine, or maybe an extra little bit of spine, and that way you know what the belly button is doing. Just turn off the indicators and just choose the angle you want. So I think this would have been better if I were to change the background value. the backdrop color all the way up to that white that we had. Yeah, it would still look really great with these values. I don't think we'd have any trouble. I think you do need a cast shadow for the belly, especially if some light is bouncing up from above. We've yet to add the feature where we have fuzzy edges, but I don't think you need to worry about that. But you do have to have a cast shadow coming off the hand, which you already had. So if you want to take this screenshot as the new screenshot and just assess. Okay, so head size, we got away with it, but the downward tilt of the face, it just seems a little bit forced. I would have loved to see more of a tilt like this, and getting a mannequin like this and posing it is definitely part of blueprinting. The breasts are very generalized here. I would have designed them a little differently, but I think we have everything in order after, and then we compare it to before. Everything was off. This symmetry line led to shoulders that would have been down here. And this bird, yeah. And this shoulder line here would have had a symmetry line moving down there. So you see how the symmetry line. And this is a forced spine. Human spines don't do this. This was forced. You can do a lot of crazy stuff with Portrait Studio on purpose, because you know you come in all kinds of you come in all kinds of lighting and all of that, and setups and proportions, and that's why we've allowed you to do crazy stuff. But just because you can doesn't mean it's proportionate. You have the power to do it though, still. Okay, so before, after, a little bit more aligned, a lot more aligned, what am I saying? Spine gesture. More bounce light control over the rest of the body and the silhouette. The silhouette's too strong, but that white was definitely needed if you had to have it. And the size of the hand is definitely important. If you increase the size of the head here, make sure to increase the size of the hand as well in your Portrait Studio if you're posing with it. All right, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to move on to the next ones, maybe a little bit less time spent on those. Any questions at all? So I've been going for a while now. Any questions? I promise you that there will be a Mac version soon and a Linux version, but we're actually prioritizing an Android release for this, not the you know, Apple before. So the Control Z still needs work. Yeah, we're still updating it. It's constantly getting updates. We're very, very active in this development. We're not developers that forgot about it like other developers. We're right here working on it. So okay, so any questions at all regarding anything that was, the fingers are posable, yeah. By the way, I use Portrait Studio often for this piece. Must train more with it, though. Oh, okay, okay. Let me close this. I haven't yet set it up, so it's running in the background. Yes, a video tutorial is coming up for Portrait Studio. That's definitely in the works. We're just waiting for a hand model. So the hand model is going to be very helpful for me personally. So no questions? Okay, I'm moving on. So for this piece here, what's happened is you have a very large head size, which is fine. And you're kind of meeting halfway with the anime, but still the head is way too visible on that far side. And when a girl is kind of leaning her head, if she doesn't want to move her head, so for instance, I don't want to move my arm, but I am moving my body to meet with my arm, and I am tilting my head to meet with my arm. So this seems like the most, it's like a halfway to a face palm. And either you adjust the head or you adjust the arm. So if she's this poised, her arm has to go down. If she's doesn't want to move her arm, or if you don't want to move it, then we're looking at something like this. But if you want changes in Portrait Studio, all the changes right now are recommended by users. So if you want anything, if you want changes, if you feel like something, especially those who use it daily, please send us a form submission on the store. And if you scroll down on the Istebrak.com store, you'll be able to find a form submission. And that'll be kind of a way for you to tell us exactly what you want changed. So right over here, I'm kind of raising her head so she seems a little bit less stiff and small. I'm going to shrink her head just a touch. She seems like she has developed breasts, so I'm thinking the age that you're representing is inconsistent. And I'm kind of just, sometimes heads do this, sometimes people just rest their head right on, just like that. But I have to be able to have access both to the arm that's being posed. So take a look. It's not just about posing one section. It's the whole friggin' arm that needs to be changed. Okay. So we have to make sure we've got both. So this is like having Portrait Studio as well. Okay, so I might actually have to just jump in there again. My fans are still reeling. Remember, Portrait Studio is a referencing engine. If you're working with a very, very not inexpensive but very weak laptop, let's say, you're really not going to get the best of it. So we warn you, in fact, we advise you not to buy it unless you have a good computer to run it. If you do, and you find out only later that you can't, you always have your copy. So, all right, and please disable your firewalls. We're in the process of registering Portrait Studio officially in New York State and all of that. So you won't have issues, and we'll register it to the Norton and all of that business. And any, like anything that is not registered is considered a virus. Anything that is an executable. So our executable will be registered very, very shortly, probably within 20 days. And you won't have to deal with that antivirus business anymore. So it just takes a while. Patent pending. And then either she's leaning her head in, just like that, or she's leaning just her chin out and her hand is on the thing. So I'm going to run this again. I should not have closed it. Okay, look at that angry dude. Was there an update? Oh, right. So, where are you? Excuse me, lady. We need your services again, madame. Sorry about my fans. Okay, so we are starting with her head. So it does take a bit of time to just get used to this. She seems so grim compared to the girl we're drawing. And let's take a look at her angle. So her breasts are somewhere there. And then we're actually looking at her from top down. I'm going to zoom out. Let's take a look at her shoulders. One is actually directly behind the other, sort of. So this is good. And then we've got her arm kind of leaning on the table. Okay. So the arm always gives me the most trouble. There's just so many modes of motion. And okay. Like that. And then I'm going to lower the whole section down. Thank you. Leaning on the table. That means it's fully bent in. And it just depends on where we're taking it. So if she is leaning her head forward, she is actually doing a little bit of this. Okay. And then her arm, her hand. Just this. And then this whole section leans forward and is moved. Whoa. Is moved forward. Okay, and then we're going to lean this whole section in, but lean the arm up. And then we're going to tilt the head toward the camera. And then we're still, the head is more this way. And the arm is even higher. Okay. So this is just depending on what you decide to do with the hand. I would totally move the hand to be a little bit under her chin. And then this guy over here is just all the way forward, all the way there. It's okay with the overlap. And I'm just going to move her legs forward so I know what to do with her body. Oops. You can move both legs with Alt. No. There we go. No, that is not what I wanted. No. So sorry. I'm not gonna move her legs. I don't want to fuck this up. Okay, and then for the love of God, put the light in front of her head. Okay. Disable those. Okay, and what I meant with the arm is if the hand is tilted this way, where are you? So the hand has so many positions and I fucking hate hands. If her hand is tilted this way, then we've got this kind of gesture, which means the head, excuse me, the head would be tilted this way and this way, leaning on it. Okay, and so that this is exactly what I would try to figure out. I think her body was just a little bit less, a little bit more tilted towards the camera, and her head and her arm are more away. Okay, so the arm comes first. We pose that according to the tilt of the torso and the tilt of the head. The head and the neck and the torso are all required. You can live without your arm. The arm is what you pose afterward, but of course the tilt of the head is required. That's why I draw the head last, because it's still having a relationship with the rest of the body. It's still dealing with the rest of the body. So that we look at the before, the head is kind of meeting the hand instead of the hand meeting the head. Okay, so at this point, she really wouldn't be tilting her head up unless she's really up close to the table. All right, so this is really what I would change about your piece the most, is instead of the head meeting the hand, I tilted the hand forward. And that's exactly what we found here. The head can't move any more forward unless the torso has decided that this motion is possible, but we're looking at this reference here and your torso isn't moving forward. So the head can't. So the head is restricted to the motion of the torso. That's a fundamental, that's a rule of anatomy. Write that back. The head is restricted to the motion of the torso. Okay? So this is one big lesson that we learned today twice over. We learned it with this piece. The head is restricted to the motion of the torso. And if the torso had completely thrown off symmetry, what is the basis that you have to help you reference the rotation and the tilt and the movement of the head? Nothing. You're just making one mistake after another. You're basing one unusual trait as the gauge with which you apply the rotation and the form and the scale of another trait. So your one mistake, it's like the Three Stooges. You know, there's no one guy that is their center. They're all equally stupid, and no one is helping each other. No one is helping illuminate the other. So you got Three Stooges of bad features that are not capable of giving you the kind of referencing you need. So either stop it and do some form studies, stop it and do some animation studies of the body. Actually study moving videos of the body, so that you can see how they move. Function is really what the body's all about. For this one, I love the tilt of the head. Everything seems to be beautiful except for that excessive hairline. at the top. So this is a good example of a head tilt. So this is why I saved this piece today. It's an excellent example of head tilt. The head is tilting in a beautiful way, no excessive exaggeration on the tendons or bone structure of anything over here. However, the shoulder seems to be missing. So the fact that you added fabric on the shoulder, you should have raised the shoulder line even further. But not only did you add fabric, but you lowered the shoulder line. But the head tilt is just beautiful. Both angles, flipped or not flipped, I love the head tilt here. You just need more strength in the shoulders. She has breasts. She's not very young. She has fully developed cheekbones and chin. You don't find this in a younger character. See that? It kind of looked like an aging head, hairline, as well as the really stunted shoulders, kind of all added up to making her look like an old lady with a pretty face. But this here is what we need to see for the shoulders. This fabric seems very heavy. So I'm not sure if I should let the hair in, or I'm not really sure. Filter, liquefy. I need to complete this upward C shape of the fabric along the chest. Maybe just touch that down, just because the fabric might not be that thick, but the shoulder line still had to be raised. So see that? It was a beautiful piece, but you just had these weird doohickeys hanging around. Okay, and don't be afraid to give the female the appropriate adult torso size. You know, there's no reason why you should be delaying that. And along every other suggestion I made today, doing some gesture lines, basic blueprinting will help you make all these mistakes earlier. But because you see me correcting them with liquefy, you're like, oh, I'll just do what Istebrak does and correct it with liquefy if a problem shows up. That's really bad thinking, because in real life you don't have liquefy. And I want you guys to always be able to duplicate your skills here digitally in real life. In real life, when you're doing life drawings or figure drawings, you have to be able to map out what's going on. If you ever watched a professional work on YouTube on those time-lapse videos, they spend hours just figuring out the proportions before they actually start rendering. But you guys are so heated. You guys are sitting on coals. You got to just go in and start rendering. And you had the difference. You had the possibility, like, to have this before and after in your work. But this is holding you back. Your laziness is why you neglected. Your laziness is why you neglected to plan, and your laziness makes your work look worse than it really is. I know you guys see all these mistakes. I know something looked wrong to you. You just didn't know what it is, and planning is really the best way. As for the hairline, that's just a taste problem. That might have been a tunnel vision thing that you had. But this one is the one we spent the most time on, and you can see that there were some light inconsistencies. There were some major anatomical problems, so many anatomical problems, too many in fact for you to be trying masterpieces, full illustrations. I salute you for trying to fill a canvas from corner to corner. It's always a very difficult adventure to take on, but at the same time you should be you know, trying your best to plan so that this illustration you're going to spend a week or two on is you know, it's worth it. You're going to be spending a lot of time. You want a success at the end. You don't want a failure. So plan everything, plan it. Costumes, hair color, everything. Your palette, your swatches, your light direction, your bounce light. Where's everything coming from? The more you plan, the less susceptible you are to failure. Write that back to me. So class is done finally. And if you guys enjoyed today and you want to join and you want to submit your stuff for Critique Hour, I'll take questions in a second, I promise. Go to istebrak.com and click on the Google Plus icon. To get Portrait Studio, just go here and purchase on the store. And again, please, I am almost always saying this, but the challenges are designed to set you up for a workplace environment. The stresses of the workplace. If you want to get a job in art, you're going to have to learn to suck it up and plan. And it's this kind of challenge right now is preparing you for planning. So for the final drafts, when you guys are posting your drafts and it's the 8th and we're going to do our critique hour, I want to see in your same submission that you submit your final in, I want to see some working lines. I want to see some construction stuff. I want to see, maybe not on the same canvas, but just posted together as one post. That's the kind of stuff I want to see. Planning helps you avoid mistakes. It helps you revert your tunnel vision. It helps give you a chance to make all the mistakes before you make them in real time, before you make them with your rendering. What's better than something telling you where to put your brush? There's nothing ever telling us where to put our brushes. What is out there actually holding our hands and helping us paint? I wish I grew up with something holding my hand and helping me to paint. I made so many stupid mistakes that a simple planning would have helped avoid. Big heads, long ass necks, then short ass necks to compensate. It was just a nightmare growing up. And that's why I can teach you guys, because I took all the shortcuts, and even though the straight line was right in front of me, I took all the shortcuts, and that's why I can teach you and warn you against this and show you exactly what you lose when you try this kind of stuff. When doing studies, specifically in portraits, should you focus on copying the reference as much as possible? Can you deviate from it a bit? This is a gray area. If let's say, let's build an official answer to this. If you always draw the same face, copy the reference exactly. If you're not always having same face syndrome, then you don't have to copy it exactly, but you do whenever, in any case, no matter what the case is, if you're working with a reference, you're trying to encapsulate and represent as much of the form as possible. When generally, whether or not you have same face syndrome, when you're working with a reference, you're referencing the lighting and the anatomy. It's not just about the likeness, okay? That's the official answer. Do I have any videos on referencing and mapping out a face before rendering? I found that I do a lot of liquify during my 14-day challenge. I have a lot. Recently, I did one on trend lines. So right over here. I did one on trend lines very, very recently. So go to videos, this one right here. So common beginner mistakes, working with reference and symbols. So trend lines is this one right here. I should probably rename this to be about trend lines, but this one I talk about it. So as you can see, this was the before, this was the after we started planning, after I outlined exactly what was the conditions for the likeness and the form that the student missed, and of course being affected by our constant symbols. Will I do a critique on 14-day challengers that have completed? Yes, I always do. If you have one, then post it up. If I am doing a day theme, I don't do 14-day challenge critiques by request. If it's up there, if I don't have any masterpieces to rip through, then I will probably choose a 14-day challenger to go back into our portraiture specialty. For the contest, is it all right to post all the progress work or only poses and bows? Post all the progress work, but I swear to God, if I find that you've posted more than once in a day, my mods, I will send with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse after you. And those are my mods, including me. So please, please do not post more than once in a day. In fact, don't post more than once every 2 to 3 days. It's just, that's a big rule. But if you can post them all, yes, after you've done working on them, put them all together in a post and put them up there. You will get so much feedback. A recent rule Tom added is if you want critique, you got to provide critique. Let me see where he added. Let me just read it verbatim. So I can't read it here. Where are the rules about community? Okay, so I think he added it. If you propose critique, consider it an obligation to critique the work of others. Beautifully said. This community uses peer critique as a method of improvement. You do not have to be an expert to critique. You can still provide critique if your work is what you consider beginner or something like that. Don't fret. Post and critique anyway. Give your thoughts on it. You don't have to be a professional to tell that something looks off. We see real faces and real proportions every single day. We see tropes every single day. We have an eye whether or not we're professionals. The point is we're catching our hand up with our eye and teaching our brain to undo its habits. We're all professionals on the inside. So this is really, really well said. Thank you, Tom, for adding this. Is there a possibility to advance a theme every time before we post a critique? Like today gesture? No, I don't announce them. They just, as they come. It's just the trend of what's happening in the post. So again, I don't take any requests because that would be mayhem. I do take general requests, general grievances across the community, like the whole pupil problem. I found that out on my own. But if everyone is having problems with, I don't know, like anything, like I will talk about it if I find that everyone is asking for it. But I don't announce what the theme is going to be before critique hours. That it's so random, and everyone is coming from so many different backgrounds. It's hard for me to announce one and have people paint just for it. اسمك مميز استبرق. أكلمك من السعودية. أهلا فيك فاطمة. كيفك? Thank you for all you share with us. Greetings from Chile. Welcome, George. I saw your comment earlier, George. Thank you so much. Before the class started, I saw your beautiful comment. Thank you. Someone asked previously about giving advice on frustration and giving up. The problem, the human factor, I feel, is thinking from like a very philosophical, kind of like Plato perspective. The emotions get in the way. And when you start realizing that your emotions are actually inhibiting your ability to accept how much work is ahead of you, you will no longer take it step by step, but you will take it emotional wave by emotional wave. If you are someone who is susceptible to frustration, you also give up on paintings quickly. Have you noticed? You also are impatient everywhere else. You apply a lot of emotion. You also, have you noticed this, draw only when you feel like it. So this is not a virtue. Being excessively emotional with a skill development is not a virtue. It is going to disable you. This is actually what Jordan Peterson was discussing with success, females and the whole archetype of agreeableness, and attaching and investing emotional value everywhere, and how everyone should inherit some more of a masculine perspective. It's not be more like a man. It's an archetype that is, you know, arcing over either women or men. Women can have feminine male features in their personalities. So get emotion out of there and stop it. I used to draw only when I felt like it, till I realized I had to man the hell up, physically just actually be like a man. And that means not be a man. I'm saying, obviously I'm being antithetical, but I'm saying that you have to stop investing emotion in it. That's why you're frustrated. I'm not going to tell you to change your study habits or diagnose your portfolio. All of that is technical. There's a lot of personal development and personal growth. And if you're the type of person whose temperament is extremely fluctuating emotionally, if it's clinically fluctuating, and we tend to have that in artists, then go to a doctor and talk to them. Maybe you're having this frustration in more than one area. But if you feel like you're generally okay in that department, stop investing so much emotion, because that's why you're giving up. You feel like you need to be given some sort of emotional satisfaction every time you draw, or the work is load, it looks too big. If you attach emotion to traveling towards a faraway mountain, it's going to make the travel more difficult than if let's say you were hiking and you had a goal, and you were at that same time hiking, you were being emotional little sissy about getting there. It's going to make it seem like that goal, that little mountaintop, is 20 times farther than it really is, because your emotions just make you experience every second as if it was 10 seconds. So stop it with the emotional factor, because it's just going to make everything worse. Instead, shed yourself of this emotional attachment to your failures, because if you fail once, you will never feel that way again. Your brain will find a faster way to complete the same task with more efficiency and success. And if you fail, let's say 10 times a day with 10 different sketches a day, you're 10 times closer, I'm using 10 a lot, to your goal. So remove that emotional factor. I think this is one of the biggest problems, male or female. You're having this emotional attachment. It's because you're being way too emotionally invested in your art. I get it, it's your hobby, but at the same time, you're learning a very serious craft. And if you're not ready to accept that there's a lot of work ahead of you, or you've accepted it, but the emotion is making it worse, I think your craft deserves you change your personality a little bit to help you get there faster. What if you don't feel qualified to critique? Then that's just a personal image of your skill. Like I said, you don't have to be artistic to critique. You being able to see people. I think the only qualification, the only characterizing qualifying characteristic is that you can see. If your eyes work and you've seen people before, you can probably critique. The only time I would see a comment like, hey, I only just started seeing yesterday. I haven't seen a lot. I mean, I've never seen a big person yet. I don't know what a big person looks like. For all I know, they could just be like, you know, one big ball. I really haven't. I've heard people talk about big people, but I haven't seen one in real life. Maybe I should go to America. Then at that point, I would understand why you're not qualified. But if you can see and you've seen people before and you've seen people all your life, you can probably help. If you like colors, if you can tell that a color is just a little bit too warm for its wash, you can probably help. Just a little bit out of nowhere, it comes a lot. I think you personally, GM, are very, very qualified. You definitely can see a little bit more than the average, layman. And you're definitely looking at things with an artistic perspective. So you should be feeling like you're qualified of all people. This is very helpful to me. I suffer from my emotions getting in the way out of my drawing. If I allowed, like, listen to this, guys, and let me put this into perspective and close off today. If I allowed, and you guys heard my monologue at the start, prologue, whatever, if I allowed me Istebrak, if I allowed my emotions to get in the way, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have 500 videos or whatever I have right now of art teaching. I would have allowed my emotions and my past and my illnesses to get in the way. But at one point or another, I realized there is a place for me to give my emotions the stage they need for me to be sane and listen to them. And there is a place for them to not take over my life. So if you are trying to draw at least once a week, you just got out of work, you feel like drawing, work took a lot out of you, you work in retail, people piss you the crap off, and you just want to go home and sleep, or you want to go home and draw. But you sit there in front of your monitor and you're just emotionally drained. You don't need to be emotionally intact. What I mean is, you don't need to have emotion at all in order for you to try to draw something. In fact, drawing might reinvigorate you for that night. So if you feel like, oh, I can't deal with anything else, I can't, and that window was all you had to give your art, which is so important to you, a chance to draw something, and you're not because, well, you don't feel like it, I think your art deserves a little bit more. And I think that's the worst case scenario right there. Coming home from work, you want to draw. You're not specifically physically tired, you're emotionally tired. Again, emotion was never the criteria for you to start drawing. And if it was, if you feel like having an emotional session where you just draw out your life, what better way other than when you're drained at the end of the day and you want to just express yourself? I see no reason why you can't put your pencil on your paper. And I'm being a hypocrite. I do this a lot. But there are times when I'm in the middle of drawing and not 30 minutes before, I was like, I am never drawing again. And I look back and laugh at myself for thinking that. So I really think if you guys are underestimating your ability to tackle and defeat your emotions. And I think we're not in an epidemic where we're not listening. I mean, this isn't Soviet Russia or something. I think we're very in touch with our emotions. In fact, way too in touch with our emotions. In fact, we are literally have nothing else to do than talk about our emotions and how upset and offended we are nowadays. So I think it's more to do with controlling our emotions because they're inhibiting our growth. That's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining. I will let you guys go. I will see you on Thursday, the 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you everyone for being the outlet with which I teach. Thank you for coming here and gathering and listening to me and my words, whatever they may be that day. I appreciate you guys very, very much, and I think I'm gonna be able to mend with your help, definitely, and with you guys being there. It is a very tough time in my life, but if it wasn't for you guys, I don't think I'd have any reason to want to mend and fix my back and get over this get over this. Everyone has a cross to bear. Everyone has a trial in their life, but I don't think I'd be able to tackle this one without you guys. Thank you, everyone. I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye.